Carlos Nelson with What's Up Kansas City, and tonight we have two of our politicians, our city councilwomen, uh, Ms. Raina Park Shaw and Ms. Melissa Robinson. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing
Well,
well.
good.
Thank you.
All right. This is gonna be quick order, not one of my long and lengthy interviews or anything, but they're gonna give you an update on what's going on in their lane and what they think is important. One of the things I had talked to you, Raina, off camera was I didn't forgot what was this tax the
The
tax.
earnings tax.
All right, that's the only thing I'm concerned with right now. But they have other things, and as I say, I forget. But I didn't put that out front. So why don't you tell our audience and your constituents uh, what you're doing, where you're at, and what they need to know.
So we can definitely start with the earnings tax. The earnings tax will be coming up in April, and we definitely need everybody to go out and vote and support that. What the earnings tax pays for is it pays for basic services that we receive. So that's trash, recycling, illegal dumping, public safety, so police and fire, road repair, animal control, property code enforcement. So all the basic services are paid for by the earnings tax. And what I think was most important for people to know is that the earnings tax, 50% of the earnings tax is actually paid for non-Kansas City residents. So it's not just paid for by us and our tax dollars. And it's in essence what that means is there are about 50% of the people that live in the suburbs that work in Kansas City, because you pay for it by where you live and where you work. And so we want to ensure that we continue to have the earnings tax, because that is what helps us provide the basic services.
So what run down what's your individual concerns? As I say, y'all politicians, and that's a strange deal with me, but I know that both of you, I I I labeled y'all the something like the crew, but I really label Melissa the Amazon Black Warrior as it relates to our community. Shake your head, you be sticking it to them, honey. And uh, uh, Raina, your twin, they be y'all like Wonder Woman, and you bringing her right along in my estimation. I ain't talking about nobody else in that warrior tradition to look out for her community, regardless of what blows you take personally. And when you girls taking blows, audience, they taking blows that can affect their family, and they raising kids. Go on, Raina. What else is important with what you're doing?
Yeah, so the things that we're working on now are the chief equity officer position, which we just recently passed. Councilwoman Robinson and I led that legislation, which it passed. And so now we're working with the city manager to ensure that we get the right person there with experience, diversity and equity and
Cutting you
inclusion.
off. Tell our audience what that is. They might not know. And then, Melissa, when you come on, I want you to expand on it.
Yeah, so in essence, the chief equity officer will really ensure that we can break down some of the systemic racial issues that we have within our city. They'll be looking at helping us to establish policies, reviewing the policies that we have that are allowing us to continue that systemic racism that we have within the city. Looking at, so that's, contracts, looking at policies, procedures, and ensuring that we are doing our part to make sure that we break down those barriers.
Hey, Melissa, because you have the experience, how do you see that legislation, or I don't know whether I'm labeling it correctly, but how do you see that ordinance working to level the playing field?
Well, in my estimation, and the chief equity diversity officer is the brainchild of Councilwoman Park Shaw, and I'm very proud of her for leading this effort, and also understanding that it's one thing for us to say that, you know, racism is a public health crisis in Kansas City, which we passed that and led that effort when we first got on council. But how is that operationalized? It's important that you have the staff, the infrastructure in place to get us out of that public health crisis, right? So, as Councilwoman Park Shaw so eloquently stated, that in every policy, we need to look at things from an equity lens. When we pass a policy, there's a question on the fact sheet that says, is it good for the children? And it's amazing how creative, you know, our department directors, God love them, that they can answer that question about is it good for the children. But we have to be looking at every policy from an equity lens. Is this advancing anti-racist activities, or is it taking us in the other direction? How are people benefiting? All people benefiting from every policy. So when we talk about MBE, WBE, are we looking at that from an equity lens? When we talk about the application of our GEO bond dollars, in which we all voted for, right? How are those projects being dispersed from an equity lens? Councilwoman Park Shaw talked about the earnings tax, which is a 1% tax of everyone's earnings. It's not a regressive tax like a sales tax because it's based on your earnings. If you earn more, you pay more. And so with that, when we expend those earnings tax dollars, are we doing that from an equity lens? How are our staff treating the public? What types of trainings, what types of accountabilities do we need to have for our internal staff? And so equity, and the thing about racism, it seeps into the culture of an institution. And it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of unearthing to change the trajectory and to change the tide. And we're not only talking about things from a race-based lens, we're also talking about issues that impact women, issues that impact working class people, issues that impact our GLBTQ community, issues that impact our Asian community, which is oftentimes overlooked in our in the city. So we have to be the best Kansas City we can be for everyone. And so to the extent anyone in our community is hurting, being oppressed, being maligned, that impacts everyone. And so to have that person that is in charge, that has a bird's eye view, and every day they wake up, they're focused on that issue, that is what's going to change the policy into the actions that we need to see the difference being made. So I appreciate sometimes we can be kind of like a 1-2 action, you know, in terms of
y'all, let me tell you this. Again, I only can speak for Carlos Nelson, and Carlos Nelson speaks for Cascade Media Group. That you and Ryana are the future here in Kansas City. For real, for real. You got a lot of pretenders, and Barnes is not on here, but I know Barnes is down with y'all like 2 dump trucks on flat tires.
that tough love, Dean Lee. I call him Dean Lee.
All right, yeah.
Our engineer, our thought leader, our puzzle piece
is that what he is? I don't even know.
The puzzle together, yes.
But I know Lee Barnes.
Yes.
And I know Lee Barnes' history with Du Bois Learning Center.
Yeah.
More action than.
Gotta love Dean Lee. That, you know,
right.
Yes, he's
and I love that you giving him his propers.
Yeah.
Like Ryana, before you came on the air, Ryana was like, you know, she's up under you like mother hen. And she gives you your propers as you know your way around and you're learning. And obviously you're creating a working atmosphere with your sister that is representing our community. And now what I'm saying that I asked Ryana, would you and her spearhead that political effort to bring our city, county, and state officials under one roof and call for a meeting, a big powwow, so that you and Ryana have talked to me about things that you would like to see happen in our community, where it's not being led by a political organization, or it's two women, and it's y'all's turn. All you gotta do is look at Biden. Biden already like, hey, now I'm getting ready to get in the easy chair, even though I'm out here, but my vice president's getting ready to put the whip down.
Yeah, she's cold.
And all it. And that's where I see y'all right now. Everybody's trying to figure it out. I've talked to y'all enough. You got it figured out. Get on board. You don't have no plan. You like some of them Republicans criticizing, but you don't have no working plan. Y'all already done sent the first salvo across. Let's get this MBE and all this other. We need somebody to look at all of this. That hasn't happened. So that community, that's leadership. Not just to talk, but putting something together that has some teeth in it that can change the actual policies, which will change our conditions. So with that being said, I said this is going to be short. Last question, because I want y'all to come on next week, have a little more specifically what you want to talk about. But Ryana, what did you think about the situation in the Capitol? From a Black perspective, what went on in your mind as it relates to your community? How did you receive that? And what did that say to you about America per se?
Just my heart broke. Mainly because I looked at the double standard that we have. To me, it was obvious when you look at all of the action that happened when when the Black Lives Matter protests went on, and how they were treated versus how everything that happened in the Capitol and how they were treated. It infuriated me. And but then the other part of me, I looked at it from the perspective of the elected officials that were there, and I just put myself in their shoes. I can't imagine the fear that probably went through their minds and their hearts, knowing that these people were coming in. I mean, it was heartbreaking.
Second question, how did you feel about you being an elected official, understanding the pervasive attitude of white America, and transferring to Kansas City, what you could do to bridge that gap?
Mm-hmm. So, and I think I feel like I carry a big responsibility, and I put that responsibility on myself to continue to be the voice for the people that put me in office. And as so it wasn't just what happened at the Capitol. I had felt that pressure and responsibility since I've been in office, and it was compounded by the Black Lives Matter protests. And ultimately, I think what it made me feel like is I need to do more. Which is why, I mean, you've seen the Chief Equity Officer position. There's a lot of other things that we're working on that we'll be able to talk about in future meetings with you. But ultimately, it fueled the fire in me to work even harder.
Excellent. Melissa?
Yeah, so the violence that was portrayed at the Capitol is violence that has been portrayed just in other ways since the beginning of America. America was founded upon violence and the superiority of white men. So it wasn't a surprise. This was just a temper tantrum that they were throwing because they just they couldn't find another outlet. And the threat that they felt based on the outcome of the election. As Black people, we have felt this same level of violence in corporate America, in political lanes, in economic lanes. And so for many of us, it's kind of bittersweet because now other white people who were in the dark had an opportunity to see the light.
It's almost like, cutting you off, it's almost like when they put in those cameras. All the white community, oh no, the Black people, they deserve to get stomped and this and that.
Right.
And as late as the Floyd, the one, that's the one that they put who's the one that they put the foot on the neck?
Yeah, George Floyd. Yeah.
George Floyd.
But before we go, Nelson, I do want to talk about, just to tee this up for a conversation for later. And that is, we're on the heels of Dr. King's birthday. And one of the things that Dr. King talked about was political power, economic power. And so Councilwoman Park Shaw and I have been working very hard to build economic power for our community. And not to say that capitalism in itself is wrong. Capitalism is healthy until we oppress other people in order to gain wealth. And so again, when you think about slavery and the enslavement of Africans for free labor, the oppression for the benefit of capitalism, we know was wrong. When we think about the industrial prison complex and the current enslavement of Black and brown people for the benefit of capitalism, we know is wrong. And so now we're at this very critical point in Kansas City where we're talking about economic development and us enslaving and oppressing Black and brown children for the benefit of capitalism, for developers to come in and take wealth away from our children for their own benefit. So we are fighting this fight, but we can't do it alone. We need to connect the dots, and we need to say that enough is enough. And we're not going to sacrifice our children for all of this extravagant development in which our community has no access to. And so I would love to come back and talk to your viewers about uneven economic development and how we're addressing tax incentives in Kansas City.
All right. Do you have any closing comments, Ryana?
No, I don't have any closing comments. I think my colleague did an excellent job setting the stage for us to come back next time.
Hey, you know what? See, as I tell people, I'm a gangster posing as a businessman. You're gangster, girls. You're gangster. That's the real deal.
We're trying. We are committed to the people. We thank everyone for their support. And I know that a lot of people supported us. The business community supported us to help us to get here. But that doesn't mean we're like Shirley Chisholm. We're unbought and unbossed. And so what that means is we're here
lady, baby,
to do the will of the people that is good for everyone. And so that's, we're going to try to do our very best to do the right thing for the right reasons. And so we would love to come back and again, share our agenda. We're working on a vaccine task force. We know that COVID is rampant in the community. And we want to make sure Black and brown people that want to be vaccinated are not at the back of the line. And so we'll come back. There's a lot to talk about. We appreciate you having us.
Yeah,
all right. And as we always close, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This program is sponsored